Hello. Oh, that's me. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Connor. We are here with another stream. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. Keep getting your comments in the section below. We are steaming on head with the content as always. I hope you've been enjoying it. Listen, we've got more watch alongs coming this weekend. It's going to be back to the old days. It's going to be myself, my dad, and my brother. Hopefully, watching a little bit of a depressurized event, which is Leeds Southampton at the weekend, which, listen, we all sort of deemed to be this massive grandeur event, and it's not happened. It has not happened, unfortunately so, but it looks like it's going to be a bit of a damp squib. It looks like Leeds United are going to be going into the playoffs with Southampton. And listen, we have to get on board with it as a content creator. I have to be on board with it as well, of course. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth is on your chest, Connor? Well, are you braced for the run-in? Because me and Back Four, we're braced for the run-in, everybody. You can get your merch. Link in the description below. 10% off for existing customers. Also, you can be part of a giveaway. Yes, you can be. Free merch just like this. Quality merchandise, updated merchandise all the time. We're doing Euro merch as well. So well worth it, everybody. Good delivery time, shipping, and all that sort of good stuff to all, America, Australia, all of these godforsaken places which are too far away for me to even think. But yeah, you can get all that in the description below as well if you hit the link and pick your favorite bit of merchandise. We are doing a giveaway though, as I just mentioned. Literally type in the every single video from now on in. I mentioned the watch long, going back and typing it in this morning, but you can do it on every single video now up until the Southampton game. We are going up. One of you will be randomly selected, but you can only win the prize, which can be any Back for One Leeds merchandise of your choice. You have to follow the Instagram page or the Facebook page of Back Four. You have to like and subscribe to the One Leeds Fan Channel, of course, like every single video. And yeah, that's the only way you can be selected criteria-wise, so make sure you do that. Okay, what are we doing today? Well, I wanted to get a gauge. I wanted to get the temperature reading on Leeds United fans today. And the reason behind that is because I think there's a lot of interesting discourse right now about the manager, and I wanted to speak about it. He is the number one trending topic over my socials. He's the number one trending topic. Alongside that, with regards to Google Trends and News Now and all that sort of stuff that we all update ourselves on, and I wanted to get through the positives and the negatives of Daniel Farke, and I wanted to gauge your opinion, the fans' opinion. It's one community, one family, one Leeds, and I wanted to gauge what you guys think. We're going to be doing a Generation Leeds tomorrow on the Patreon. Click the link in the description below if you want to join that. We've had 2 new members over the past couple of days, and we're going to be speaking about it with my old man on the podcast, Generation Leeds, as well. But I wanted to give you a sort of brief of what I think, and then we're going to get into exactly what you guys think as well on Daniel Farke. But please get your comments in the section below. John Moore's in the building. Hello from US of A. Leeds fan since 1974. Good man, John. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. A phrase I've been told one too many times. Jay's in the building as well. Hey, mate. Hello. Let's have a look. Keep getting your comments in. North says, hi, Connor. All Leeds, aren't we? Hiya, mate. Stephen says, just disappointed. We had so many chances to put distance between us and third, but just look knackered and mentally drained. It's freezing, Connor. It's all right here, mate. Good evening, Connor. Don't want Farke as the manager next season, and we will end up turning into Norwich City with ex-Norwich City rejects coming to Leeds. We are Leeds, not Norwich City. Louis says, I'm talking my way into the playoffs, and Norwich are the only ones that have won a game in the last 3. Yes, Connor, let's not forget, says Tim, that this is all down to Rad Rosani and his clowns for leaving it at the start of the season with contracts negotiation. Terry says, love the King Billy shirt. Yeah, we'll get into this now, everybody. It's interesting as well because I am going to be meeting an individual who is of much importance tomorrow, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm going to feed back a few of these comments. So I would definitely encourage you to get these in. Trust me. So yeah, what I want to get onto straight away is the fact that the overarching thing here, everybody, is a single point would have been enough. And that week it felt like it was taken away. A little bit of me was taken away, and I think a little bit of you was taken away when we did that week with Sunderland and Blackburn, I felt that that was the killer blow. I felt, you could have come back from the international break. We could have had a little bit of issue. We could have had a little bit of problematic scenes when it comes to Leeds stuttering a little bit against Hull, against Watford. And, you kind of understood Coventry being a bit of a tough task, although it wasn't for one Ipswich Town last night. But that week at home, that week I was fortunate enough to get to both games, or unfortunate enough, I should say, and it felt like that was a flat Leeds. It was a complacent Leeds, and it was a Leeds that was really void of any ideas. And I thought that was a massive, massive indicator of there are problems ahead. There are sort of choppy seas ahead there. But what I wanted to do was go back to the very beginning of this and just really break it down a little bit. I mean, the start of the season was horrendous, wasn't it? It was awful, and we're going to get into exactly how many players went out, etc. But it was very choppy. It was very rough. The middle part of the season, we were excellent, and we brought it right back. We clawed back a 14-point deficit on Ipswich. We clawed back a 17-point deficit on Leicester City, and that has to be great credit to Daniel Farke, because there are many parts of this of which he did incredibly well. And I have to preface this, everybody, we can still go up. This isn't done, but we had the ability to really go in there and do something. Post international break, I mentioned several times, the checkered flag goes down. Who turns up? Who's going to fall off? We mentioned Easter weekend. Southampton fell off. But then who fell off towards the end? Leeds United, dramatically, with a huge bump. So Daniel Farke, let's talk about his position right now at Leeds United. So when he was first hired, the Whites got him in, and I believe it was very much right place, right time. And when you look at his career as well, Borussia Mönchengladbach, obviously Dortmund too, Norwich City, I believe Leeds United is the biggest club that he's managed. The biggest club that he's managed, so he couldn't really turn it down. I know there was the stipulations. I know there was the contract discussions about what he wanted and how the club had to be right for him. I don't know how much I believe that to an extent. I feel like when Leeds came calling for Daniel Farke, he probably thought, oh my goodness, because there's only been one man who's probably been bigger than Leeds United who's been that manager, and we all know who that is. We have to contextualize exactly what Daniel Farke walked into. A financial mess. Leeds were all over the place. Rads was hiding money. Some of the stuff that we were talking about in the summer on the One Leeds Fan Channel, he had money in Sampdoria. He was about to take over Sampdoria, and he was transferring equity from Leeds to Sampdoria. It was chaos. There was apparently player sales potentially going on in the background, which nobody knew about. We all have to hark our minds back to those dark, dark times when we went down from the Premier League. We had a little bit of hope because we thought, God, we've been in the abyss, really, in the Premier League. It's been absolutely horrendous. Grazia, Allardyce, Marsh. It was awful. The fan feeling was horrendous. It was awful online. We all know that. I know that in particular because running the fan channel at that moment in time was really, really difficult. I was getting a lot of backlash for saying what I thought Brownie was. KG, when he was part of the channel, was also getting a lot of backlash. So it was a real rough period, And we all felt that. And going down into the Championship, you thought parachute payments, you thought potential squad movement, of course, choppy seasons I keep mentioning ahead, but you were hoping that Leeds were going to at least make the playoffs, and we've got to bear that in mind. So 15 left, 8 on loan. I think the contextualization of it all as well, we'd seen Jorginho Rutter in the top division, and we thought, awful. I was giving him a chance because he was a young lad. He'd just been brought in. And I did think to myself, look, he's not really been given that proper go in his position. He's not been really on the right. Is he up front? Is he a cam? What on earth is he? And he's been absolutely, truly excellent this season. We have to get to that point. Crysencio Somerville is another player who really, we didn't know what was going on. He wanted to stay at Leeds, apparently after conversation with Daniel Farke. He wanted to stay at Leeds. He wanted to prove himself. He felt like he owed something at Leeds because he hadn't really done anything. He'd been at Leeds for quite a period of time, really, all the way back to the Bielsa days. His development, you've got to give credit to Daniel Farke there. The Nonso situation was truly excellent, really, how he dealt with that. We have to say now, after the fact, we have to look at that and say, do you know what he did, how he turned Willian Nonso around, how he almost said, look, all right, then go. But you're not training with us. You're not getting your own way. You can stomp your feet, but you're not, all right, fine. The way he handled the Sinisterra situation, extremely professional. You know, they wanted to keep hold of him, but fine, you go, we bring in someone else, no problem. I like that. It was very much of the Bielsa's. If you don't want to be here, you know what, as Liam Cooper said in the summer as well. Alongside that, you know, we had the period at the start of the season, Sheffield Wednesday, Blackburn, West Brom on that first day, where we had two goalkeepers padding out the bench. That's how bad it was with Klaassen and Darlow. And actually, when you look at the transfer activity, Ampadu, Rodon, Gruev, and Kamara were all huge late buys. And really, when you look at the big issue right now, the huge issue right now, how do you feel psychology-wise? The problem is right now with all of us is it's the unknown. So if we went into next season in the Championship, it's the unknown. Does Somerville leave? Does Nonto leave? Does Rutter leave? Does Archie leave? Does Ampadu leave? Who leaves? Who we're going to be left with? What then happens? How are we going to survive? Financial oblivion, managers leaving, tumultuous scenes. I don't know. And this is the problem in football, especially when you're at a club like Leeds United, because it never seems to be, we'll keep on that theme, steady waters. So I think that's the big issue right now. I think we don't know what's going to be happening. We know it's going to be a little bit, well, what's happening here? Like, we've got money to pay back. Does that mean we have to sell X, Y, A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Or does that mean we're okay in terms of parachute payments? And all these things will be cleared up. But Leeds, even Kieran Maguire put out on his Twitter today, the financial football expert, that PSR-wise, Leeds are absolutely fine, which should ease a few minds. But it is 100% that point in the sort of in the mindset, in the psyche, where you think, well, if we stay down, what's going to happen? Because is it a realistic scenario that the club get rid of all of the assets? I would say it's not realistic that they do that. Do they get the valuation for all the assets? Who's going to come back? Who's going to feature? Are Leeds actually going to go out there and bring some players in? You would expect so. The 49ers have massive ambition to get back to the Premier League. This is all, by the way, on the basis that we don't go up through the playoffs. But the 49ers have this ambition, a huge ambition. They've already said to Daniel Farke, you'll keep all of those players if you get up. A little bit of a sort of golden nugget for him at the end there. But alongside that, it is just that, you know, the ambition that the 49ers have. They didn't come here to be a championship club. They came here to be a Premier League club. So you do have to consider then how that period would be. Daniel Farke having a full preseason, something that he wasn't given this summer, an actual steady ship. I know there's going to be a lot of players coming back, but you'd hope that the club have prepared for that. They know who's coming back, what they can do with players next season in terms of loans, maybe sales, what the player actually wants to do. Hopefully that's been going on behind the scenes with player liaison, with Steinson, with Hammond and co. Presumably that's what they've been doing, player development and stuff like that. And we'll have an idea, we'll have a grasp on what happens. Does that mean Archie has to get sold for us to keep hold of certain players? Does that mean certain players have to go for us to keep Archie? Things like that. With players coming in as well, it might not be as bad as you think if we don't go up through the playoffs and if we in fact stay in the Championship. Now, when we do look at the overall picture, we look right now at the clubs in and around Leeds United. Ipswich are a complete anomaly. That has never happened, ever. And what will probably never happen in our lifetimes again. That club, they've got, I believe it was last season, they were taken over. I think Evans sold a while back. So they got new ownership a couple of seasons ago, I believe it was. And they are bankrolled, basically, Ipswich. And they've done it within the means, but they brought the right players in, they brought the right manager in. And this has been a momentum wave that you will probably never see when it comes to the football leagues ever again, because there is a widening gap now between League One and the Championship. We see that because a lot of these League One sides, when they come up to the Championship, do struggle. You know, back in the year of when Southampton went up, then they went up to the Premier League, successive promotions. Norwich did the same thing. You don't really get an Ipswich anymore. Sunderland nearly did it through the playoffs. Of course they did when they came up to the Championship, but they weren't able to get that extra bit of momentum. Now, the difference is Ipswich have had a top-class manager. That's what needs to be said. Ipswich have had a top-class manager. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. I would say the main difference between McKenna and Farke, one is proactive, one is reactive. And that is the key difference. And I do think that is the split, if I'm honest with you, between a good and a very good manager. Someone who knows the subs, someone who is very, very able to read the game, be tactically ingenuitive, and then able to sort of pick the game apart a little bit. and then a manager who is just throw something against the wall and see what sticks, basically. But I'm not saying that is Daniel Farke. I'm not. I think there's more to him than that. But maybe he just needs a little bit more time with these players. But you have to also look at the fact that McKenna's been with these players for longer than what Daniel Farke has been. That's something that you need to take into consideration. But it's a very similar group. He's added to that similar group, and we've seen momentum waves with our previous Argentinian who was in charge when we went up to the Premier League from the Championship and finished 9th. So you've got to bear that in mind. And Leicester, we all knew at the start of the season, if they didn't win the division or go up in the top 2, it'd have been an absolute blow up. And really, when you look at Leicester altogether, listen, they're going to probably start next season with -10, and we'll see where we are in 12 months' time if we are to stay down. Because if we are to stay down and then everything goes well next season, we could be in the Premier League and they could be coming back down to the Championship. So, hold that and we'll wait and see. But I wanted to talk as well about my expectations, and we will get into your comments, everybody. There's loads flying in, which is great to see. Shez, a new member as well. Shout out to you. My expectations, I think this is something that we have to be honest with. My expectations at the start of the season were playoffs. I think I put us 6th. What I will say, context-wise, when I put us 6th, was we had Jamie Shackett in right wing, Gelhardt up top, and Cody Drama on that right-hand side with Cresswell and Cooper at the back, I believe, at that moment in time. So me putting us 6th at that point, I think, was me just being like, look, Connor, look, just you've got to be positive. 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 But was I realistically thinking that we're going to finish 6th? No. I was genuinely thinking we're looking down rather than up from a realistic standpoint. But when we started getting everything together, we started looking at everything else. We then saw Leicester and Ipswich when we started getting a real collection together in terms of a squad at last, going past that January transfer window, or that summer transfer window, I should say. We actually got a squad together that Ipswich and Leicester were flying at that point. Do you remember the start they had? It's the best start that two teams have had to a Championship campaign in history. They were flying. So that's something that we had to recoup in terms of points and form straight away. As I say, once again, you had to deal with that Sinistera situation as well. But then there is a big but here with Daniel Farke. There has been a massive failure since the international break. And a manager who said he's the perfect man. He said that in the international break at a press conference for this run-in, it has been a cataclysmic failure in terms of what he's been able to extract from these players. And as a coach, as someone who we've praised man management-wise, that is exactly what you're supposed to do at this moment in time with a group of young players. You and your staff who are experienced, especially experienced at this level twice, have to extract the best out of these youngsters. And what went wrong? Who knows? And I would look at him not being able to fix it. That's been my huge problem with it. We've all seen the problems, and we've all seen the tactical stubbornness and the personnel stubbornness. But my problem is we had a gaffer who we can obviously compare with in our previous Championship campaign, who would take his best players off after 20 minutes if they weren't at that level. We've also seen McKenna do something similar. Players aren't performing, they're off. And then there's proactive substitutions made at the right times. Not always, but majority have been at the right times. And that is backed up by minutes given to substitutes who have made an impact in terms of goals and assists. They are right high when it comes to that ranking, really, which, is credit, really, to McKenna, because a lot of these subs have been scripted, but then you've got to be able to stop them as well. So I've wondered a couple of times, I'll be honest with you guys, does he know how to change? Does Daniel Farke know how to change tactically to match up against some of these managers? And we're going to get into just a little bit his tactical battle with Martí Cifuentes, and why, for me, that made it obvious and symptomatic of the issues that Daniel Farke has tactically, potentially, with this team. The big thing is, everybody, as well, is he has the depth. Jayden Anthony, Joe Gelhardt, Charlie Cresswell, Glenn Kamara, Matteo Joseph. This is depth at this level. I don't care what anybody says. It's depth at this level. And a lot of teams would cut their arm off to have players like that on the bench. And that's normally, obviously, the sustenance to that is even further. At points this season, we've had Jed Spence, obviously Connor Roberts, more players on the bench who you look at and you go, bloody hell, look at that bench. Willie Gnonto has been coming off the bench. Dan James has been coming off the bench. This is more than enough sustenance to be able to change the outcome of games when you are coming up against teams who just aren't on the same level of you, level as you quality wise. And yes, we figured that out going into the season, didn't we? We figured out that, look, these were the players going out, these were the players still here, but that was still done relatively early. As I said, that transfer window in summer was shut, but the problem was Leicester and Ipswich, who'd had an absolute rocking start. So I think the big differences as well when we look at it is the mass problem when it's come to the form with the Welsh lads. I think there's been a huge dip off, which I don't think I saw. I don't think you saw. I don't think maybe even Daniel Farke saw. These sort of external things where obviously Dan James missed the penalty. His form since that point has been awful. Apart from that goal against Hull City, which was a magnificent finish, he's not been the same player. He's Leeds' second top scorer this season, but he has not been the same player that he was pre-international break. He's gone back to old Dan James, which has been a real shame. You've seen Joe Rodon's performances dip. You've seen Ethan's performances 100% dip. And across the board, really, it's been a little bit problematic when you look at the Welsh lads who've gone away and they seem to have suffered, whether or not that's because they've been playing more games or whether or not that's just, I don't know, maybe morale has been hit because of what's happened. I don't know. Sometimes psychologically you can be impacted by things like that. Con Roberts hasn't really been given a chance, which has been a personal frustration of mine, because he was so pivotal in Burnley's running last season, scoring one of the pivotal goals that essentially sent them up. And I think when he's played for Leeds, he's been really decent, but we've not seen enough of him. And the other three Welsh lads have really struggled. I would also say with Daniel that the key players that were on the pitch pre-international break, they remained on the pitch. So you would see your Somervilles, your Rutter coming off or not even coming off. Really, you'd see them coming off with maybe 2 or 3 minutes to go or not coming off at all when they were evidently fatigued before the break. You had your Sheffield Wednesdays, your Millwalls. These players were fatigued. And you would then see maybe a Perot coming on for 2 or 3 minutes or a Jaden Anthony coming on for 2 or 3 minutes. And you just felt when the game was won and the game was done, take your key players off and manage them, utilize rotation, and then we wouldn't be talking about fatigue so much. I will also say as well, and I've mentioned this several times, when it comes to Cresswell and Joe Gelhardt, I've been we spoke about Cresswell at the beginning of the campaign and how we wouldn't let him go in January, and everybody was saying the same thing. But suddenly, according to some fans, he's never been good enough anyway, which is revisionism on a different level. But Charlie Cresswell has done it at this level for Millwall, and Millwall wanted to sign him on a permanent deal. They wanted to partner him and Jake Cooper at the back. Now, is that significant? Absolutely not. Is it a completely different standard with Leeds United in terms of squad caliber? Is it completely different levels when it comes to Leeds United, when it comes to expectation? But the big thing here is tactical flexibility when it comes to Cresswell. You don't have to start with Cresswell, but bring him on. Bring him on at points when Leeds are struggling with set pieces. Bring him on when we need a goal. It's probably something that isn't predictable. It's probably something that the managers on the opposite side think, oh, he's not going to do that, because what Daniel Farke does is throws all the attackers on and goes through a 3-1-6 formation. And if that doesn't work, well, we don't know what's going on there. Let's utilize something like that. And we haven't done that when it comes to Cresswell whatsoever. There's also a little bit of tactical flexibility when we've all spoken about Ethan going back into the number 6 because he's a stronger number 6 than Elia Gruev. At least you put Cresswell at the back. Then Cresswell's done it. And the big thing here is, as I've mentioned, the expectation is different. The squad caliber is different, but Cresswell's done it against probably, 20, 21 of these championship sides last season. Or I should say including the promoted sides, 16, 17. Forgive my maths. 16, 17 sides last season, of which he was comfortable. Spoken to many Millwall fans, because a few Millwall fans, believe it or not, watch this channel. And one of my good mates on YouTube is a Millwall fan content creator, and he really liked Charlie Cresswell down there. Wasn't sold on Jamie Shackleton, but Charlie was a big fan favourite down there. He was out for a period of time when it came to form, but when he came back in, he was brilliant. And guess what? He scored goals from set pieces. So I think the utilisation of him has been wrong, because I think in some games, those fine margins, like you saw last night with Cameron Burgess bumbling a ball in for Ipswich at a set piece, people like Charlie Cresswell in these situations are key. And I think it would have developed Charlie as well. And, at some points I thought to myself, what more can we do to actually get him on the pitch? Another one is Joe Gelhardt. Now, I've mentioned this several times. Joe Gelhardt, for me, this season, there could have been a direct replacement for Rutter and Gelhardt at points. When I was talking about Millwall, when I was talking about Sheffield Wednesday's examples of rotating and taking some of your key players out of that game at, your 70, 75th minute, Joe Gelhardt would have been brilliant in those situations. And it's not because he's played and he's been brilliant this season, but that's absolute poppycock. It makes that's just such a stupid rationale. You've got to look at Joe Gelhardt's ability. What is he good at? Close control, shooting. He's got a lovely left foot and an excellent football IQ. So I think at championship level, in that number 10, coming on for 30 minutes, even we saw him against QPR, he came on, he made a difference in comparison to what Joel Perreault was giving us. He came on in that number 10 role, and I thought he looked sharp. Now, that, for me, should have been utilised a lot more this season. And that is where I will look at Daniel Farke. And it's definitely something that we could maybe utilise against Southampton going forward if we are to rest and rotate a little bit. And what I will say as well, everybody, is Mateo Joseph is symbolic to all of this. I've seen some absolute ridiculous things online saying, yeah, but look at Izzy Brown, Bielsa's era, when he brought Izzy Brown on, look what happened. That is the most dense comparison I've ever heard in my life. Mateo Joseph has been very, very good for club and country, but when he's made his appearances against QPR, I felt that he made a significant difference as well. And let's be brutally honest, he absolutely ran a £100 million defence ragged with another rotation option, Jayden Anthony, who was putting balls in perfectly that night and put one in perfectly, obviously, for Mateo Joseph. And I think, I'll be honest, I think Farke has bottled that decision. And I think that's been probably one of the biggest black markers against his card this season, the Mateo Joseph utilisation and the continuation of the usage of Joel Perreault, who Perreault has just killed our press completely in so many games. I'm going to get into your comments, everybody, but I just want to use this as a bit of a tactical example as well. I've just seen say QPR destroyed you. Stop and think about it. We're going to get into QPR, and this is sort of the example that I wanted to give, and in terms of the tactical discussion. So QPR did some really fundamental basics. Marti Fuentes has done unbelievably well since he's come in, and it's not just Leeds where he's picked them off tactically, but he buried Daniel Farke that night. And for me, it was a little bit of a worry, because you're probably going to do Carlos Corberán. Carlos Corberán in the playoffs is going to mirror what Marti Fuentes has done, and kind of mirrored what he did for West Bromwich Albion anyway, in terms of stifling Leeds United. So QPR completely killed Gruev. Callback man marked him across the pitch. So what do Leeds do at the back? We pass out from the back. Okay. So we mentioned this in the extended preview on the Patreon. Joe Rodon loves to get the ball, because we haven't got Pascal Strout to do it anymore, who's better at doing this than Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon is the build-up man right now. So we will funnel the ball to Joe Rodon. And the idea is to build up through Joe Rodon. So Lyndon Dykes, the striker, was pressing to death Rodon and Ampadu at the back, which was forcing them to play the ball. But if Gruev's cut off by Jack Goldback, what do? Go long, 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 long. And who are you going long to? Joel Perreault. So you're going long to Joel Perreault, and there was no effectiveness there whatsoever. So Leeds' build-up was completely stifled. Anderson was joining Chair and was joining Dykes in pressing Leeds United back consistently, which forces Leeds United to do what, everybody? Go back to Illan Meslier, which we've seen so many times this season. And Cher was pressing Sam Byram continuously through this game, because Byram cannot go past the press. He will always take the safety option. And that's not because Sam Byram's not ambitious enough to do it. He's just not a great footballer. He's not a good enough footballer technically to go past that man and take on that man. So Sam Byram will have the handbrake on and pass back to Meslier. So then Leeds are completely stifled with options. Where to go? What do we do? How do we do it? So the players are confused on the pitch. So I can see Mark Bradley in the comment section below there, mate. And this probably answers your question. If you don't have systematic ingenuity and in-game management, what the hell do you expect the players to do right there? Just a moment of quality? Well, if you've got specific game plans for 4 of Leeds United's key players in build-up, what on earth do you do? And that's a question to you, Mark. They can't just pull flowers out their arse, mate. They have to have a system. And if they haven't got a system, if these players aren't playing to that system, fine, change them. But Daniel Farke didn't do that until the 65th minute, when he decided to bring Joseph on for Byram. which was too late. And this has been the whole problem with Daniel Farke. So from my perspective, everybody, Daniel Farke deserves next season. I'm definitely going to, he could still get us up. But if Leeds are to remain in this division, there are some severe things that need improving. And I think that's what we can all agree on. But I want to get into your questions as well, everybody. Shez is a new member. Leon's a new member. Shout out to you guys. Keep getting your comments in the section below. Really interested to hear what you think on this. Loads of comments flying in. Hopefully you've enjoyed that as well. Hopefully, and this is it, Mark. I knew you'd come in with this sick of Farke bashing and calling managers after players. I hope that was a little bit of a rationale for you on the positives and the negatives of Daniel Farke, Mark, because I think it's not what you look, Mark. We're not going and bashing Daniel Farke whatsoever. We've given so many positives at the start there. It's a bit of a sandwich. It's a bit of a balance, and just take all that in, mate. So what I'm not doing is bashing Farke there whatsoever, but there is criticism there. You cannot, if there's systematic flaws and he's putting certain players in and being stubborn with certain players, Mark, you can't always turn around, especially with young players, and say, it's their fault. It's their fault for not performing. It's their fault for not performing, because there's a guy at the top who puts them in. Ty says, our form wasn't helped when Rutter was suffering with his hernia. Yeah, mate, completely agree with that. As I say, everybody, keep getting your comments in. Click the like for Connor. He's doing a good job. We really would appreciate that, everybody, if you could do that. Just show us higher on the algorithm. You know, I do try watch a few things back and put in a bit of effort here so I can give you guys a little bit of, you know, background, point evidence, explain instead of saying stupid things off the hat. If the club wanted to change the manager, I can understand that. Whether it's the right way to go, only time will tell. Ipswich, hold on. Ipswich fan here. You have a better squad than us, potentially not going up. Manager needs to have a hard look at himself. Kieran McKenna would have got you top 2. Yeah, definitely, mate. Tom says, a man with his experience should know what to do at this stage. Lots of experience on the bench. He never went with. McKenna rotates players all the time. 100%, mate. Becchio's bulge. Connor, did you hear Joe and Jert indirectly talking about you again on their stream? Do you know what, mate? It just gets to a point where it's just a shame. I don't understand it. Do you hear me indirectly talking about anyone on here? Absolutely not. It's a shame. But it's flattery at the same time. But it is a shame. It really is. But yeah, as I say, no negativity from me. Don't understand it. But there you go. Keep it coming in, everybody. Interested to hear. Would be interesting to know what the 49ers have told him, though. Yeah, 100%, mate. And it'll be, yeah, yeah, we'll get into that tomorrow. It's simple. No playoff promotion. Wouldn't take him into next season. Ty says, sometimes you have to hold your hands up and say, well, we're not good enough in the final few months. Charles says, interesting point you raised about Farke's ability to change strategy during the game versus Quafentes. Make you right there. Yeah, and I think that's it, mate. I think, you know, when you do look at the strategical side of it and the tactical side of it, I don't massively... When you look at Quafentes and clearly what a very, very good coach he is at this level, and the Premier League, you know, teams will be looking at Marty 100%. But it is just so interesting how he cut off all the lanes. All the lanes were completely cut off, and we've seen this before this season when teams have stifled Leeds. And what fans tend to do, fans tend to say, well, they've just sat back in a low block. A lot of them haven't. You know, you look at Sunderland with Dodds when we went up there to the Stadium of Light. They were pressing certain individuals in that Leeds side. Certain individuals were getting the ball. They were getting pressed. Glenn Kamara was getting pressed in that game. You go to Stoke away when we lost. Sam Byron was getting pressed on every single touch. There was a funneled press. They were man-marking our key players. The problem is, what managers are able to do now is see what's worked against Leeds United, and there is a clear game plan against Leeds. And if you've got Rutter and if you've got Somerville on an off day, it's not as simple as that. But if you cut off that supply, if you cut off those lanes of which Leeds United can do build up and get consistent momentum when it comes to passing, listen, it's all going to be off. And then when you get the ball back, everything changes. You're a little bit sloppy. You're a little bit off kilter, and it's a bit different. It is a little bit different. So yeah, what Marty did was very good. Carlos has done it to us. Dodds has done it to us twice now. He's got 4 points off us for Sunderland, the caretaker manager, and he just played a very, very similar way to what Sunderland did. Joe Bellingham in that game was particularly influential because he was pressing our back too. He was the lead spearhead in that attack, and he was just pressing our back too whenever they got the ball. That's really similar to what Lyndon Dykes did. The work ethic of QPR was on another level against Leeds. It was on another level. They were superb. Leeds just couldn't figure it out. But systematically, that's the manager. Unfortunately, we can blame the players, but the manager has the ability and the depth to change things around. Did you see the Leicester Players Awards, Connor and staff singing about us? Yet they call us. Yeah, I think it's going a bit far now. It's going a bit far with them. They are just, yeah, I mean, this Mavididi guy, Dan James has got more numbers than you, mate. Chill out, like, relax. It's fine. It was a bit of banter at the start, but the singing leads are falling apart again at the awards. Mavididi's doing tweets about us. Kieran Dewsbury Hall's doing tweets about us. What are you so bothered by? What did we do that hurt you guys? You've won it. Fair play. Nobody said anything. Well done. Get over it. All things aside, for fans like me from other parts of the world with limited access, thank you for being a great guide, for helping us with your content. Cheers, Connie. All the best. Thanks, mate. Really, really appreciate that. The squad lacks in key areas a decent keeper, clinical striker, creative midfielder who can take set pieces. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I guess that's the Perot. Mark says, could change our players every week. 2 good games, then awful. Yeah. Connor, do you think the manager will go into the playoffs with a different outlook tactically? I think, yeah. And Leon says he has to take responsibility. I think that there is responsibility there. And I think we're all very, very aware of that, 100%. And I think that's something that we need to take into consideration as fans. I think, you know, I don't think Daniel Farke is just going to tactically be flexible all of a sudden going into the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I will say about Daniel Farke is he's done it before. He's got Norwich promoted twice, albeit not in this scenario. But I think holistically, guys, and generally looking at it, there's definitely criticisms there. He has got us to 90 points. I have to say that. He's got us to 90 points. And if we'd have said that at the start of the season, we'd have been all like, nah, leave it. 90 points out of 45? No way. And it could be 93 points. He could equal Bielsa's. But we've got to stop comparing. When I mention Bielsa, a lot of the time, I'm just trying to make comparisons in terms of the era. But I've mentioned, you know, in terms of, you know, his, when he came into Leeds United and improved so many facets of everything around Ellen Road, and what Daniel Farke has done in comparison, not comparing, you know, the two coaches caliber wise, although you kind of fall into that sometimes when you're looking at the tactical, you know, changes that these guys would make. I think the biggest takeaway I've got from this season so far is that it's the rotation and the tactical imprint. I think good managers, I've said this before, okay managers are separated by good managers knowing when to change things around and being ruthless. And I'm not 100% sure. I'm convinced yet, and I could be wrong, that Farke knows how, when, and if he's doing the right thing at certain points. So yeah, I think that's the big problem. Can Leeds go up through the playoffs? 100% they can. We've got more than enough to go up through the playoffs. Can Daniel Farke flex, which he can do with this squad? Don't know. We've not seen it. We've not seen him in the playoffs before. So we've got to wait and see, I guess. Farke's problem is the same thing that plagued Jesse: tactical stubbornness and lack of depth. Rajiv says, has Farke ever had a team that was good with set pieces? Was Norwich good with it? They weren't bad, mate. They weren't bad. I can't profess to know everything about Norwich's set pieces, but what they were is they were a team that went till the end, and we remember that. You know, I'm pretty sure they've got a couple against us set pieces wise, but Godfrey at the back, Zimmerman at the back as well. They were not a bad team whatsoever. They had maybe a little bit more balance in that team when it comes to Lewis and when it comes to Aaron's at fullback. Jack says, look, Connor, it tells you everything when Farke said Perot is a natural replacement for Bamford, when literally earlier on in the season, he said the opposite. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's the Perot signing is just baffling, because I think it's almost like the Perot was the Pookie signing, but was that the 49ers? Was that, I mean, I'll get a bit of clarity on that tomorrow, but was that the 49ers? Was that, was that Daniel Farke pushing for that signing? But yeah, he was mentioning how, Perot is, and we forget, Perot was in that side for plenty of weeks before he was taken out, because there was just no real development with him in that number 9. And we all thought Rutter and Perot, there was a bit of problem there towards, the back end of the year last season. So yeah, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. As I say, fascinated to hear what you think on this one. And guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll be back tomorrow as always. And I'll see you on the other side. Cheers. As I say, get involved with this. You know what to do. Watch the start of the stream.